Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hi everybody, my name is Emelitta and I'm here with Shannon. Shannon's one of our customer support specialists and we're here to talk about her journey with the NDIS today. So, Shannon, would you like to talk about what your role is here at NDIS Property Australia? Yeah, just a bit about what you do.
Absolutely, Emelitta. So my role here, I mostly just take phone calls, I talk to customers, I see where they're at with their investment journey, and whether or not this is something they actually are interested in.
Beautiful. And so you have a bit of more of a personal experience with the NDIS. Did you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, no worries. So I have a little brother who has been diagnosed with cerebral palsy and most recently diagnosed with epilepsy. So he is one of the NDIS participants, which we, mention often in our phone calls.
Yeah. And you mentioned to us previously in different conversation that he was just about to turn 18.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so my little brother will be turning 18 in October, so it's a little while away yet. But for someone who, does live with severe disabilities, turning 18 is a very important stage in their life in the sense that they're leaving school, they might be, they're not quite sure where they're going to be. Is they going to be staying at their home, whether that's with biological parents or a foster mother, and, how they're going to fill their day-to-day life. So we have actually started our conversation and investigation into what his life would look like once he's 18. To get to that point, we had to do a NDIS plan management. Okay. So that's something that a lot of our NDIS participants would actually have to do at one stage or another to determine whether or not their funding would allow them to live in an SDA home, which here at NDIS Property Australia, we call our NDIS investment properties. So basically, what that means is that he'll need to determine if he has the funding there to move into a home of his own.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that, obviously being 18, it's a big part in anyone's life, especially
Absolutely.
Somebody with a disability. There's a lot more to consider.
Absolutely.
And so with your brother, he's in the process of applying for that SDA funding. Is that right?
Yes, so he'll have to do a separate application to determine what funding would be accessible to him. And then based off of that assessment, what SDA home he could apply for. Right. So with a lot of our NDIS participants, what actually does happen is they will go through an application stage. It's an SDA application stage that unfortunately, not a lot of NDIS participants are aware of, that they are able to have that funding through their NDIS. Yeah. So they're not aware they can actually get that funding from their NDIS. So that's a very important conversation the carers or their family needs to have with them to let them know what their options are.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. Would you have any advice for any families that have, maybe a disabled relative or?
Absolutely. I've actually wrote a blog post not quite long ago about this stage in my little brother's life and how this impacts the support around him, but also for investors as well, in the sense that the advice that I would give to them is understand all the options that are available to you, ask the questions, get the answers, keep asking the questions until you feel comfortable that whatever life you're setting up for your loved one, your brother, your child, whatever, is this the life that you would feel comfortable with them living?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that just is so important when we think about this type of investment, that, we're building them for people.
Exactly. That these are people just like you and me. The only difference between them and us is essentially that they unfortunately have a disability, that whether or not they were born with the disability, or maybe in their early childhood they developed this disability, or even something that I was just thinking about the other day is it could even be someone who had a severe car crash that now has to live in a wheelchair, that their whole life is altered by that.
Yeah, wow. And it's what we're doing here and what the investors are doing, it's you are drastically giving somebody the opportunity to improve their quality of life.
Absolutely. And I think that is definitely a highlight of my job, and is why I'm so passionate to work here, because not only are we, all of us, you, me, the investors, every person who's involved in making that property a reality is changing the life of a disabled person for the better. You're giving that person hope. If you look at it from that perspective, and not just any other investment, this really does have a strong social impact. You're making lives better.
Thank you. So for the investors, is there any advice or anything that you could think of if you were to talk to an investor today and they wanted your advice on, these SDA properties that they're building?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Well, I think the first thing that I have to say to any investor who's looking at an NDIS property is thank you so much. You're putting your hard-worked money towards something that is going to change a person's life for the better. When I take a phone call and I hear someone say, yes, I want to hear more, I'm fantastic. Someone like my little brother is going to have a home. For you and me, finding a home at times can be, a bit challenging. It's okay, where do we want to live? How much money do we have? Yeah. Well, we're able we're able to change our lives because we are able people. For a disabled person, it's so much more complicated than that. They won't be able to just have a job. They need all the support they can get, and from an investor who has all that money, at the dispense, and being able to think, yes, I would like to invest into this property. Mm. It's such a lovely thing, to know. So no worries.
So obviously, this role for you working at NDIS Property Australia is more than just your typical job, right? People to your heart. Is there anything else that you would like to add or say?
I think really just understanding that at the end of the day, you're dealing with people. I mean, yes, of course, there's investments, and you've got to consider all of, the pros and cons and how much money you've got towards it. But if you're also able to think that these are real people that you're helping, that you're able to change their lives for the better. If you look at it from that perspective and ask yourself the question of, okay, who's looking for a SDA home? What, the categories that we have. If you're able to ask yourself who needs a home and, what area they live in, that will really help you as well, because you're looking at it from a high demand perspective. So
thank you so much, Shannon, for sharing. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.